Everyone thinks making money is about picking the right stock. It's the first question I get. What's hot right now? What should I buy? But what if I told you this billionaire who runs the biggest hedge fund in the world says you're asking the wrong question? He argues the real secret to getting insanely rich is understanding this one simple machine. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It's the literal blueprint he used to dodge the biggest financial crashes in history. So in this video, we are breaking down that exact blueprint. I am going to show you a framework that will literally change how you see money forever. Okay, when you start investing, it feels like crazy chaos. You're getting hit from all sides. The news is screaming, crash, and then 2 seconds later, some crypto kid is a millionaire. On social media, you've got influencers promising you one secret stock that will make you rich overnight. It's pure noise, and it's so easy to get turned around. So what do? You chase the hype. You make emotional choices when the market swings and you end up losing a ton of money. You buy high because you have FOMO, the fear of missing out, and then you panic sell low. That is not investing. That's just gambling with extra steps. The real problem is we don't understand how wealth is actually built. We're asking, which stock do I buy? When we should be asking, what kind of season are we in? Are we in spring where everything grows, or are we about to enter a 10-year nuclear winter? Ray Dalio says almost everyone, even the pros, are playing a game without knowing the rules. They act like huge market crashes are a total surprise, but they're not. They are just predictable parts of a machine. This is the exact problem we are solving today. We're going to stop guessing and reacting and start understanding and winning. We are giving you the blueprint for the machine. So what is this machine Dalio won't shut up about? According to him, the economy seems crazy complex, but it actually works in a super simple mechanical way. It's all driven by a few logical forces that repeat over and over and over again. Once you get this template, you can see what's happening now, what's coming next, and how to position yourself to win. At its core, the entire economy is just every single transaction added together. Every time you buy a coffee, get a loan, or buy a stock, that's a transaction. A transaction is simple. A buyer gives money or credit to a seller for goods, services, or stocks. That's it. All those tiny transactions added up create the entire economy. And Dalio says this whole thing is driven by only 3 main forces. Force number 1, and this is the most important one, is productivity growth. Over a super long time, our lives get better because we learn. We invent things and we get way more efficient. Think about the invention of the tractor, the computer, or the internet. Each of these let us produce more with less work. This is the foundation of the economy. If we had no debt, this is all the economy would be. Just a straight line going up and up forever. Our knowledge doesn't go backwards, so in the long run, this is what really matters. But we all know the economy doesn't go in a straight line, does it? It bounces all over the place. And that's because of the next 2 forces, which are both powered by one thing: credit. Credit is just borrowing money. It lets you spend more than you have today, and you promise you'll spend less later to pay it back. When you do this, you create a little cycle for yourself. When millions of people do it, you create massive economic cycles.
Over time, we learn, and that accumulated knowledge raises our living standards. We call this productivity growth. Those who are inventive and hardworking raise their productivity and their living standards faster than those who are complacent and lazy. But that isn't necessarily true over the short run. Productivity matters most in the long run, but credit matters most in the short run. This is because productivity growth doesn't fluctuate much, so it's not a big driver of economic swings. Debt is, because it allows us to consume more than we produce when we acquire it, and it forces us to consume less than we produce when we have to pay it back. Debt swings occur in 2 big cycles. One takes about 5 to 8 years, and the other takes about 75 to 100 years. While most people feel the swings, they typically don't see them as cycles because they see them too up close, day by day, week by week. In this chapter, we're going to step back and look at these 3 big forces and how they interact to make up our experiences. As mentioned, swings around the line are not due to how much innovation or hard work there is. They're primarily due to how much credit there is. Let's for a second imagine an economy without credit. In this economy, the only way I can increase my spending is to increase my income, which requires me to be more productive and do more work. Increased productivity is the only way for growth. Since my spending is another person's income, the economy grows every time I or anyone else is more productive. If we follow the transactions and play this out, we see a progression like the productivity growth line. But because we borrow, we have cycles. This isn't due to any laws or regulations, it's due to human nature and the way that credit works. Think of borrowing as simply a way of pulling spending forward. In order to buy something you can't afford, you need to spend more than you make. To do this, you essentially need to borrow from your future self. In doing so, you create a time in the future that you need to spend less than you make in order to pay it back. It very quickly resembles a cycle. Basically, anytime you borrow, you create a cycle. This is as true for an individual as it is for the economy. This is why understanding credit is so important, because it sets into motion a mechanical, predictable series of events that will happen in the future. This makes credit different from money. Money is what you settle transactions with. When you buy a beer from a bartender with cash, the transaction is settled immediately. But when you buy a beer with credit, it's like starting a bar tab. You're saying you promise to pay in the future. Together, you and the bartender create an asset and a liability. You just created credit out of thin air. It's not until you pay the bar tab later that the asset and the liability disappear, the debt goes away, and the transaction is settled. The reality is that most of what people call money is actually credit. The total amount of credit in the United States is about $50 trillion, and the total amount of money is only about $3 trillion. Remember, in an economy without credit, the only way to increase your spending is to produce more. But in an economy with credit, you can also increase your spending by borrowing. As a result, an economy with credit has more spending and allows incomes to rise faster than productivity over the short run, but not over the long run. Now, don't get me wrong. Credit isn't necessarily something bad that just causes cycles. It's bad when it finances overconsumption that can't be paid back.
This brings us to force number 2, the short-term debt cycle. You probably know this as the business cycle. This usually lasts for about 5 to 8 years, and it's mostly controlled by the government's central bank. Here's how it works. It's super simple. When interest rates are super low, money is cheap and easy to borrow. This makes everyone, people and huge companies, take on tons of debt and start spending like crazy. Since your spending is my income, incomes start going up for everyone. When incomes are up, people feel rich, stocks go to the moon, and we all want to borrow and spend even more. This party is called an expansion, but you can't party forever. All that spending makes prices go up. We call that inflation. When inflation gets crazy, the central bank has to ruin the fun and raise interest rates. Suddenly, credit is expensive. This slams the brakes on borrowing. Less borrowing means less spending, and less spending means incomes start to fall. This is the downturn, or a recession. Then, when things get bad enough and inflation is gone, the central bank lowers rates again, and the entire cycle starts all over. This exact pattern has been repeating for decades.
As economic activity increases, we see an expansion, the first phase of the short-term debt cycle. Spending continues to increase and prices start to rise. This happens because the increase in spending is fueled by credit, which can be created instantly out of thin air. When the amount of spending and incomes grow faster than the production of goods, prices rise. When prices rise, we call this inflation. The central bank doesn't want too much inflation because it causes problems. Seeing prices rise, it raises interest rates. With higher interest rates, fewer people can afford to borrow money, and the cost of existing debts rises. Think about this as the monthly payments on your credit card going up. Because people borrow less and have higher debt repayments, they have less money left over to spend. So spending slows. And since one person's spending is another person's income, incomes drop, and so on and so forth. When people spend less, prices go down. We call this deflation. Economic activity decreases, and we have a recession. If the recession becomes too severe and inflation is no longer a problem, the central bank will lower interest rates to cause everything to pick up again. With low interest rates, debt repayments are reduced and borrowing and spending pick up, and we see another expansion. As you can see, the economy works like a machine. In the short-term debt cycle, spending is constrained only by the willingness of lenders and borrowers to provide and receive credit. When credit is easily available, there's an economic expansion. When credit isn't easily available, there's a recession. And note that this cycle is controlled primarily by the central bank. The short-term debt cycle typically lasts 5 to 8 years and happens over and over again for decades. But notice that the bottom and top of each cycle finish with more growth than the previous cycle and with more debt. Why? Because people push it. They have an inclination to borrow and spend more instead of paying back debt. It's human nature.
Okay, we just broke down the first two forces that run the economic machine. If your mind is blown right now, literally destroy that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. We break down insane ideas from the world's best investors every single week to help you become a smarter, more confident wealth builder. You are not going to want to miss what's coming next. The third force is the big one. This is the one nobody, not even the government, sees coming until it's too late. This is the long-term debt cycle. These cycles last for 50 to 75 years, and they happen because debt keeps growing faster than our income and our productivity for decades. It's insane. Here's how it works. Every time one of those little 5-year cycles ends, we have a little bit more debt than before. It's human nature. We'd rather borrow more and spend more than pay stuff back. Lenders love giving out credit because when times are good, everyone looks like they can pay it back. For decades, the debt just piles up and up and up until the whole thing is a giant mountain that's about to explode. Debt payments get bigger than our paychecks and everyone is forced to stop spending. This is the peak. And when this happens, the central bank can't just lower interest rates to save us because they're already at zero from the last recession. The economy has hit a brick wall. This is exactly what caused the Great Depression in 1929 and the huge crash in 2008. It happened in Japan in 1989 too. When you hit this wall, the economy has to go through a deleveraging. This is a super painful process where all that debt has to be reduced. Dalio says there are only 4 ways out. 1. People and governments cut their spending. 2. Debts get erased because people go bankrupt. 3. The government taxes the rich and gives money to the poor. 4. The central bank prints a bunch of new money. Getting the mix of those 4 things just right is the secret to what Dalio calls a beautiful deleveraging, where you get rid of the debt without completely wrecking the economy. Understanding this giant cycle is probably the most important thing you could ever know as an investor.
Because of this, over long periods of time, debts rise faster than incomes, creating the long-term debt cycle. Despite people becoming more indebted, lenders even more freely extend credit. Why? Because everyone thinks things are going great. People are just focused on what's been happening lately. And what's been happening lately? Incomes have been rising. Asset values are going up. The stock market roars. It's a boom. It pays to buy goods, services, and financial assets with borrowed money. When people do a lot of that, we call it a bubble. So even though debts have been growing, incomes have been growing nearly as fast to offset them. Let's call the ratio of debt to income the debt burden. So long as incomes continue to rise, the debt burden stays manageable. At the same time, asset values soar. People borrow huge amounts of money to buy assets as investments, causing their prices to rise even higher. People feel wealthy. So even with the accumulation of lots of debt, rising incomes and asset values help borrowers remain creditworthy for a long time. But this obviously cannot continue forever.
Okay, so how do you actually use this to get rich? It changes everything. Instead of obsessing over which stock to buy, you ask a much bigger question. Where are we in the debt cycles? This gives you the ultimate context for every decision. First, you'll know what to expect. When everyone is going crazy buying stocks during a peak, you'll know it's just a debt bubble and a crash is coming. You won't FOMO in at the top. On the other side, when everyone is panicking during a crash, you'll see the biggest buying opportunity of your life, knowing the machine will eventually start back up. Second, it tells you what to own. The best things to own change depending on the economy. In a boom with lots of inflation, stocks and commodities are awesome. In a recession, cash and bonds are king. During one of those huge deleveragings, you want to own things that aren't based on debt. For example, Dalio has literally said that things like gold and special inflation-proof bonds are super important. He even said a little Bitcoin could be a good diversifier. The whole point is to be ready for anything, not to bet everything on one guess. He calls it an all-weather portfolio because it literally survives any storm. Finally, this entire framework boils down to 3 simple but powerful rules that Dalio lives by. Don't let your debt grow faster than your paycheck, because it will eventually crush you. Don't let your paycheck grow faster than how productive you are, because you'll eventually get too expensive and become uncompetitive. Do everything you can to be more productive, because in the long run, that is the only thing that matters. These 3 rules are the absolute core of building insane, generational wealth. For decades, Ray Dalio has used this exact blueprint to navigate the markets and build a billion-dollar fortune. By shifting your focus from the daily noise to these predictable mechanical cycles, you stop being a passenger getting thrown around, and you become the driver of your own financial future. You stop getting destroyed by the waves, and you start understanding the tides. You don't get rich by chasing hot tips or getting lucky. You get rich by understanding the system, managing your risk, and patiently putting yourself on the right side of the big, powerful forces. The economic machine is always running. Now that you know how it works, you can make it work for you. Welcome to Warren's Money Buffet. Join our Market Masters community to unlock your financial potential. Discover innovative investment strategies and grow your wealth with us. Don't miss out. Like, subscribe, and comment to stay updated with Warren's Money Buffet. Get ready to transform your financial future. Elevate your insights on Substack. Our premium tier offers exclusive portfolio access and monthly deep dive reports. Free updates are also available. Become a founding member for personalized portfolio reviews and exclusive Q&A sessions. Gain priority access to all our new content and insights. Remember, our content is for educational purposes only. Investing involves risk, and we are not financial advisors. Always do your research.